that person is saying, I made 100 grand last year, right? Well, that person might have made 100 grand, but they also had to put 150 grand into the market. And so they're actually down 50 grand.
So a limited time offer makes people need to buy it right away because I may not be able to get it tomorrow. What does limited even mean? Is that tomorrow or is that next month? What does that mean?
Hey, these people are making $1 million, or hey, there's all these Lambos and Ferraris and yachts and things like that. I mean, I hope that everybody's that successful, but very, very few are.
We live in a world now where things can be automated and data can be searched and researched much faster. All of it can be done through AI tools much faster and much more effective. Would you agree with at least that? So, Ryan, let's just define deceptive.
Yeah, I think there's 3 components. Ad needs to be truthful, not misleading, and well substantiated. You can have an ad that is literally true, a statement that is literally true, but the FTC will say it's deceptive because it's otherwise misleading. And so think about this. You have a stock trading program where you are advertising, you have this methodology that will show you how to trade stocks better or whatever you're trading. And you tout an example of someone who's bought your course or your platform, or whatever you're selling. And that person is saying, I made 100 grand last year, right? Well, that person might have made 100 grand, but they also had to put 150 grand into the market. And so they're actually down 50 grand. So that whole statement is, while literally true, they made 100 grand, but
they're actually out 50,000.
The reasonable consumer would say, hey, I made 100 grand last year. I made 100 grand in profit.
So what is the definition of a reasonable consumer?
So it's going to be audience specific. It is going to be, the example I was just using about stock trading. Your stock trading audience, you can assume that they have a certain level of knowledge about stock trading, options, the core of the product that you're ultimately selling.
Right.
If you are selling a dietary supplement that's geared towards elderly people, you can assume that it would be more of like an 8th grade reading level, something that is easily understood. You're not using complex medical terms that would just go over anyone's head.
Use them, yeah.
Exactly. You need to make it digestible, understandable, so that they can easily understand what you're trying to say.
So it really is an intent in claims and marketing perception of your reasonable customer.
Correct.
It's super interesting. Love to give some examples, or we'll do some examples of some risky marketing tactics and play along.
Sure.
Limited time. That.
I hate it because it's never really limited. It's, limited. It's this false sense of urgency that we've kind of talked about.
Can I argue for a minute?
Sure.
I actually agree with you. So just so everybody knows, I actually agree with them. But I want to play devil's advocate for a minute because I know what our clients, they make us really well-paid janitors all the time. We joke about this. Cleaning up people's messes because they just didn't want to vomit in the toilet. They wanted to go all over the place. So limited time only. Well, we only have 10,000 units of custom product. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do another manufacturing run. So technically, it's limited time only.
We've had this conversation. So.
This was not my argument, by the way. This was a client's argument.
So I'm going to say that is more likely than not going to be misleading, or.
It's not going to be.
Why?
You said it's not going to be?
No, I think that it will be, because we all know that it's like, well, it's only a 10,000 bottle run. And so, yes, sure. If you were marketing this as truly a 10,000 bottle run, we've only got so much product left and then it's gone forever. Fine. But more often than not, we're trying to create this false sense.
If we can do another manufacturing run.
If we can do it more.
If we can get all the raws.
And we're actually going to be doing it, which more often than not, we're already kind of headed down that road anyway. But no, taking your hypothetical and not, bucking it. There's only 10,000 bottles. We have no intention of going forward presently. I say this almost tongue in cheek because it's like, the second we make this decision, we're going to change that. But if there is no intention of going forward, it's a one-off run, then I think it's a limited time offer. That's fine. But as we all know, that changes, because that decision that you're making at the limited time, that's not what you're going to get in trouble for. It's when you're on batch 10 and then all of a sudden you get hit with like a consumer class action or something saying that all of this is deceptive because you created this false market that doesn't otherwise exist.
So that's the problem. So a limited time offer makes people need to buy it right away because I mean, they want it. Or what does limited even mean? Is that tomorrow? Is that next month? What does that mean? So what are some ways? Let's walk through some ways that we can create that same scarcity. And so we've talked about this in the podcast, if I may. How about your first month membership program is free, or free t-shirt. The t-shirts can be limited time only. It's really easy to change really easy to change what the t-shirt is and come up with a different design. Every 4,000 t-shirts come up with a different design. Weight loss programs, I think, are the best for the t-shirt model because you can have tons of so it's so hard because I can't actually see any weight loss. I'm just going to do Insanity because they actually did this. So Insanity, when you ordered Insanity, you got an insane work Jane or something. And then when you hit your goal weight, you got one like, it's something like that. But they kept changing the design. And by changing the design, it was limited time only. And it was on the bonus, not that whole product. So there are ways to do that. I need to buy right now.
Creating a legitimate sale.
Right.
I mean, for a limited time only, we are going to slash this by X%, provided that it's actually a sale. And we talked on other podcasts about whether or not it's a sale or not, so long as it
allows to bounce back and forth. And you
exactly.
can bring the sales back here and there, but you got to bounce back and forth. I more like doing the bonuses that change for a limited time. When you buy X, you're going to get this, and this for free. And then all of these things, they don't even have to massively cheat. I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I've done it where it's the same ebook in contents, different covers and names. We didn't make any claims about the ebook. Here's a recipe guide, spring, here's one for summer, here's one for fall. Recipes can go for everything, right? But anyway, so.
Well, think Mike Lindell, MyPillow. He's got a, you see him in the press and he's gotten,
He has a very big brain too.
Well, I mean, if anybody.
He needs a big pillow for his big brain.
I mean, if you asked anybody how much is a MyPillow, I mean, I actually don't know what it is.
I have no idea.
But it's always
never buying one.
But it's always $99.95 on sale for
Is it?
the same? It's always the same sale over and over and over again, and that's why he's got in trouble.
So Ryan, we've gone from Direct Response Mail, infomercials, newspaper ads. Not exactly going in order here. BSLs, webinars, all sorts of progression has happened. Tell me, over the last 10 years, what's happened with regulations, compliance? When I started in this industry, there's certainly compliance. There are certainly rules. And don't think that they were as well known or as well enforced as they are now. I think a lot of things have been a lot more dialed in by a government agency. But I still think a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions. And so as we do, I'd like to run through that with you. So tell me, where have we gone in the last 10 years?
So we've seen a fundamental shift in the FTC. For pretty much since its creation, it's always been a law enforcement agency. So it regulated the economy for unfair and deceptive trade practices by really bringing litigation and enforcement actions. And then business was on notice because these cases would work their way through the adjudicative system, and businesses would have to learn from that. The FTC went before the Supreme Court, lost a lot of its remedial authority, and fast forward, it quickly became a regulatory agency so it could issue regulations defining what it would deem as an unfair and deceptive trade practice, and as a result could get civil penalties. So no longer are we reading tea leaves and trying to guess what the agency is thinking. Right now, just like other regulatory agencies, we have very clear lines of what the FTC thinks is lawful and unlawful. And so that's really been the shift that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years.
No. We didn't hear about as many people getting in trouble 15 years ago, 20 years ago as we do. We certainly didn't hear as many people being house arrest, actual jail time. Kind of walk me through that. Like, how did we go from the Wild West to quite regulated, and everybody knows that people do get in trouble?
I mean, I think the internet definitely made information get a lot faster. But even before that, I mean, people learned about things through newspapers. And so you would hear massive headlines, but the run-of-the-mill enforcement actions, the small offenders, I mean, there wasn't really a great place for the public to go and get that information. I mean, pre the internet, after.
Right. Where did you go if you were selling things in infomercials to know if the FTC said you couldn't do it? I didn't even think of that.
I mean, well, that's the thing. I mean, you were kind of either going to Title 16 of the CFR or calling a lawyer. I mean, the access to information literally wasn't readily available. And so
we are in the information age. Right?
Yeah. And so now there's a press release for everything. The FTC is flash is not the right word, but they're very proud of, their consumer protection efforts, and they issue a press release. And so this press releases say, they have collected X amount of money from people and this is what they were doing. And everybody should be on notice that this is what's prohibited. But even more so now we have, hardcore regulations that say, this is unlawful or this is what the FTC would expect. And there's a bunch of informal guidance as well. But really before the internet age, it was a little bit more of the Wild West. And the only thing that most marketers would have seen is oh, wow, this was a major headline in the Washington Post or something like that. So everything is much more condensed and centralized. So marketers have access to this information now. There, I think, is a higher expectation that people are going to comply.
I want to run through some things, and some of it we've talked about episodes. Went back to that, but I'm going to run through some things because what is changing in 2025, right? What does the FTC want to see? So let's start with income, health, and testimonial links.
Mm-hmm.
What are my requirements? We have another podcast where we talk about some of the things regarding testimonials, but I want to dive a little bit deep here. What are my requirements?
Sure. So let's start with income claims. If you are advertising that's if you buy my product,
I make $1 million.
Right? So you need to have.
I don't make that much, Ryan, but I can teach you how that's most of them, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to have written proof somewhere that person actually made $1 million. And not only that, if you're going to tout that testimonial or that endorsement of your product, you need to show that that's typical. And so what does that mean? Like if you teach a business coaching course or
may not
anymore.
A lot of people put it, and let me just finish. I want people to hear it. This may not be typical results.
No,
that's not an okay thing to do anymore. And a lot of people don't know this.
There's an affirmative obligation to actually say what is typical. Right. I mean, you will be in FTC enforcement actions where you need to come up and say, okay, you were saying that this person made, $1,000 or whatever the number is.
Yep, made $10,000 this month.
I want to see what your students had made over, a certain period of time. Whether it's stock trading or business coaching or whatever you're selling, if you're saying that people will buy my product and I'm going to teach you or show you how to make more money, you need to be able to substantiate that. You need to show what is typical, not just like, hey, these people are making $1 million or hey, there's all these Lambos and Ferraris and yachts and things like that. I mean, I hope that everybody's that successful, but very, very few are.
Just because I want to be like really clear. What would typical results, what would the FTC say is typical results? 50% of your 75%, 90%? Like, so do you feel comfortable?
It's going to be the average consumer experience. So I'd say about like 50.
Just take everybody and average it out.
I would average, well, if you're going to take one person, it needs to actually be that person's experience using the product. But, if you look and like
you're
say,
talking about testimony, I'm talking about
income claims. So like if, Ryan, I bought your course. And you're touting Ryan is, hey, I bought your course. Ryan made $1 million last year. You would want to show that, I would say at least half of the, or at least maybe the median student population is making $1 million. That would be the typical results. If the vast majority of your students are only making like $1,000, the FTC is going to argue, well, it's deceptive to go out there and say, well, this person's making $1 million. A reasonable consumer would buy this course and expect to make $1 million. Now you need to, there's nothing wrong with touting results and you should be able to. I mean, attorneys do it all the time. It's like, of course there's always carve outs for attorneys, but like, and we'll say, past past success is not, indicative of, future cases and things like that. But, you should be able to go out there, and you can, like, look at our highest performing students. You need to just put people on notice that these are going to be atypical and affirmatively disclose that they're not typical. Like, sure, you shouldn't expect this.
Here's my top 10.
Totally. You also need to be able to back up what the average consumer would be.
Ryan, this is not going to be the fastest one we've ever done, but I think it's super important because we both saw this article. I think I sent it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck? And so we've watched people that we know on social media for weeks now talk about this
regime change.
Thank you. And what it's going to mean and how they're going to be able to do what they want and say what they want, how they want, when they want. So let's talk about that. The RK News that made supplement founders cheer, and people like us who are going to have to clean up the mess panic. So just walk me through what they're saying and what you're thinking about. So I get my own thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, so RFK, I mean, the whole Trump administration has been very anti-establishment, very anti-regulatory agency.
So they are the establishment now.
Well, now they're gutting it. And so
or trying.
We've seen a large amount of FDA staff be laid off in key parts of the FDA, which are really fundamental to patient safety and just the safety of all of us. But everyone has been cheering because RFK has a very, I would say, unique point of view on quite a few issues in the supplement space. And
many niches. Okay.
Truly. And so with the downsize in the federal government, everyone is thinking that, well, I mean, if there's not enough regulators, then I can basically say what I want. I want to emphatically say that is absolutely wrong. Nothing has changed. What was the law yesterday or before Trump assumed office is still the law today. And if everyone, and just for a little bit of context, when Trump was first in office, we had just as many, if not more, FTC and FDA investigations going on as in the Obama administration. So this isn't going to be a fundamental shift. The law is going to stay the same. Perhaps some of the enforcement mechanisms will change.
Let's talk about that because there are a bunch of FTC and FDA attorneys, I believe, that were hired prior to.
Correct.
And they are gutting some of the agencies.
It's everyone.
Is it really?
It is lawyers. I mean.
But let's unpack that for a second. So a bunch of the lawyers are being fired. And they're stripping down.
And it's not just the lawyers, but it's also like.
Follow me for a minute.
Okay.
So the lawyers are going away. They're stripping down. Administrative, people who answer emails, people who do research, they're all getting stripped, right? Just follow me, bro.
Got it.
Okay. That's true. They're not changing the laws.
No.
So 4 years from now, when the next person gets elected and they beef it all back up because multiple people have died from not taking insulin and tons of people are suffering from all kinds of ailment because they were taking white label BS in a bottle products. And there are tons of complaints to the Attorney General, as we've seen in previous, I wouldn't say administration, time period when they weren't so forceful in enforcing the guidelines. You follow me so far? Now someone gets in that has a hard-on for marketers again, which will happen eventually. How far back can they go?
They can go pretty far back.
So I said for the next 4 years, I'll just take everything down. Who cares?
Not going to happen.
So I think the point that I want to drive across, and I do like your points for sure, but the big point I want to drive across is, yes, perhaps for the next 4 years, people can really not worry so much about the regulations around labeling, around claims, around deceptive advertising, but everybody pays the piper eventually.
Well, and it's not just the FDA. It's the FTC, it's state attorneys generals, it's consumer protection attorneys. So, yes, there might be less enforcement from the FDA.
Because there's less manpower.
Well, there's less manpower. And so what might have ultimately culminated in a full-blown investigation or criminal enforcement action might be more of a warning letter or, some other slip on the
alternative.
Sure.
Because you're going to tell me why they won't do it. We live in a world now where things can be automated and data can be searched and researched much faster, including marketing websites, labels on images from sales pages, guarantees, scarcity. All of it can be done through AI tools much faster and much more effective. Would you agree with at least that?
I would.